Let's talk about globalization. It's one of those big kind of academic words that gets thrown around. But what if I told you it has everything to do with the shirt you're wearing right now or the phone in your pocket? We're about to see just how personal and how surprising this whole global economy really is.
So, to kick things off, let me ask you a question. Think about Tupperware. It feels like this classic, all-American brand, right? You can almost picture those suburban kitchen parties from back in the day. But is that picture still accurate?
Well, check this out. 40 years ago, 90% of Tupperware sales were right here in the US. But today, that number has completely, and I mean completely, flipped on its head. A wild 90% of their sales are now outside the United States. Even their leadership team is international. So that one company kind of shows us that our whole idea of an American brand might be a little stuck in the past.
And that really gets you thinking, doesn't it? In a world where a supposedly American company does almost all its business overseas, what does a label like Made in America even mean anymore? The lines aren't just blurry, they're practically gone.
So, to really get this, we need a simple, clear definition. At its core, globalization is just this process of everything becoming more and more connected. All the different pieces of the world's economy relying on each other. Think of it like a giant, intricate web that links resources, labor, and customers from every corner of the planet.
Now, to make this idea feel real, let's trace the journey of something super simple, a t-shirt. You're probably wearing one, or at least have a dozen in your closet. But believe me, its life story is anything but simple.
Just look at this thing's travel itinerary. It starts as cotton grown in Texas. Then it's shipped all the way to China to be spun into a shirt. It comes back to the US to get a design printed on it, and then it's sold to a tourist in Florida. But wait, the story's not even over. Once it's donated, it gets packed up again and sold in a market in East Africa, starting a whole second less. That's one t-shirt hopping across multiple continents. That right there is the global economy in a nutshell. Now, a journey like that doesn't just happen by magic. It's the result of very specific choices and strategies that businesses use to operate in this massive global marketplace. So, how do they actually pull it off? Well, the most common starting point is something called global sourcing. This is exactly what our t-shirt did. A company in one country buys its materials, like cotton, or pays for manufacturing from another country, usually to get a better price or find special skills. It's pretty much the bedrock of international business today. And this global sourcing leads to two big effects you've definitely heard about: outsourcing and insourcing. We hear about outsourcing all the time, right? American jobs moving to other countries to save on costs. But the flip side of that coin is insourcing. That's when a foreign company, like Honda, decides to build a huge factory in, say, Ohio, creating thousands of jobs for Americans. It's a two-way street, with work constantly flowing back and forth across borders. So, how does a business even get started with this stuff? Well, they usually don't just jump in the deep end and build a factory overseas from day one. It's more like they dip their toes in the water first. They might start with lower risk moves like sourcing materials or just exporting what they make. If that works out, then they might take a bigger leap, maybe partnering with a local company in a joint venture. And if they really want to go all in, they build their own facilities abroad. It's like climbing a ladder, with each step representing more risk, but also more potential reward. But, and this is a big but, the super-connected global system is far from perfect. For all the cheap products and amazing efficiencies it creates, there are some pretty significant, often hidden costs, and some really tough ethical questions we have to face. This slide really gets to the heart of the tension. When it works, it's a beautiful thing, a real win-win. The host country gets jobs, new tech, and tax money. The big multinational company gets profits. But when it goes wrong, that relationship can get really ugly. The host country feels like it's being exploited. The corporation feels like it's being unfairly squeezed. Finding that perfect balance is, well, it's the ultimate challenge. And one of the absolute darkest sides of that global push for lower and lower costs, the very push that gets our t-shirt made so cheaply, is the reality of sweatshops. We're talking about places where people work for incredibly low wages, for incredibly long hours, often in dangerous and unhealthy conditions, all to produce cheap goods for us. And that danger, it is terrifyingly real. In 2013, the Rana Plaza factory building in Bangladesh just collapsed. It was full of garment factories making clothes for some of the biggest brands in the world.
More than 1,100 people died that day. It was a brutal, horrifying wake-up call about the real human cost of our cheap clothes. And there's another persistent, gut-wrenching ethical problem: child labor. This is the full-time employment of kids in jobs that should be for adults, literally stealing their childhood and their chance at an education. The scale of this is it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. The International Labor Organization estimates there are 215 million child laborers around the world. No, that's not a typo. 215 million. It's a massive global crisis hidden deep inside our supply chains.
Okay, next up, there's corruption. So picture this. You're running an American company. Here in the US, bribing an official is a huge crime. But then you go to operate in another country where, well, let's just say it's how business gets done. It's expected. The US actually has a law that says American companies can't pay those bribes anywhere, and that creates a really tough spot to be in.
And listen to this quote from an American executive talking about doing business in Russia. It just perfectly captures the dilemma. He's not sliding an envelope of cash under the table. The so-called bribes are just built right into the official invoice by local agents. It shows you just how blurry that line can get. And this leads us to a massive ethical crossroads. Should an American company have to follow American laws no matter where they are in the world, even as it puts them at a disadvantage? Or is the rule really, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, even if that means breaking US law? There really are no easy answers here.
So given all of this, all the opportunity, all the complexity, all the ethical minefields, what does it actually take to succeed in this globalized world? Because this doesn't just apply to giant corporations, it affects all of us and our careers.
The key really is to become what you might call a global manager. And this isn't just about knowing how to read a spreadsheet. It's about having cultural intelligence. It's about understanding what's happening in the world and knowing how to genuinely connect with people from totally different backgrounds. And what's really amazing is that when you look at the research, it turns out that the core of good leadership is pretty much the same everywhere. It doesn't matter what culture you're in. People want to follow leaders who are honest, who are positive, who build strong teams. And on the flip side, nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to work for a boss who is a loner, who's irritable, or who acts like a dictator. These fundamental human skills are the real currency in the global economy.
So it all comes full circle. Globalization isn't just about where you might go on vacation. It's about where your clothes come from, it's about where your next job might be, and it's about the skills you'll need to build a successful career. The world is more tangled together than ever before. The only question left is, are you ready for it?